If you're going to follow along in the scriptures, you can open up your Bible to Zechariah chapter 3. We will be there shortly. But first, I want to share with you about a really weird dream that I had this week. I was getting ready to go for a walk, and every single shirt that I had in the whole house was dirty. And I would just go from shirt to shirt to shirt, and I'm checking this shirt and it's dirty, and I'm checking this shirt and it's dirty, and I'm checking this shirt and it's dirty. And I just get to the point where I go, do you know what? It's fine. It's fine for me to go out on a walk with a dirty shirt. That was my conclusion. I knew exactly where this dream had come from. There was no question in my mind when I woke up the next morning. Sometimes you have a dream and you go, where in the world did that come? Like, what did I eat last night that produced this? But this was one of those dreams where I knew exactly where it had come from. I had spent hours the evening before preparing to preach on our passage today from Zechariah. So Zechariah chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. We'll read it. Then he showed me Joshua, the high priest, standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to accuse him. And the Lord said to Satan, "The Lord rebuke you, O Satan. The Lord who has chosen Jerusalem rebuke you. Is not this a brand plucked from the fire?" Now Joshua was standing before the angel, clothed with filthy garments. And the angel said to those who were standing before him, "Remove the filthy garments from him." And to him he said, "Behold, I have taken your iniquity away from you, and I will clothe you with pure vestments." And I said, "Let them put a clean turban on his head." So they put a clean turban on his head and clothed him with garments. And the angel of the Lord was standing by. As we've been saying, this is the fourth vision that the prophet Zechariah sees during the night of February 15th, 519 BC. And we've tackled this particular passage in two sections. In verses 1 through 2, we saw Satan's accusations rebuked. And then in verses 3 through 5, we saw Joshua's garments replaced. And we looked at that first section last week, and we encountered what essentially is a heavenly courtroom scene. Joshua, the high priest, is the defendant. The angel of the Lord is the judge. And Satan is the prosecutor. And Satan stands there and he lists accusation after accusation after accusation against Joshua. Yahweh, however, responds to the accusations of the adversary with a rebuke. Now we come to the second part of this vision, and it's going to focus on Joshua's clothing. And so we're going to really examine this text around three words that come right from our text that all kind of cluster around that theme. So in verse 3, you may notice the phrase filthy garments. In verse 4, the term pure vestments may have caught your eye. And then, of course, in verse 5, we have a clean turban. So all of those are clothing terminology. And each one of those verses will just categorize under one of those headings: filthy garments, pure vestments, and a clean turban. Now, once again, this week I owe a particular debt to biblical commentator George Klein, just on this passage in general. So I thought I'd give a general call out to him. We have already prayed in the pastoral prayer. So we're going to dive right into the text with filthy garments in verse 3. It says, "Now Joshua was standing before the angel, clothed with filthy garments." Now, if Joshua is in court, in the court of Yahweh, no less, he is certainly not dressed for the occasion. His clothing is filthy. And as is going to become clear from the next verse, this symbolizes his sin. Now, filthy, this is actually a pretty graphic word in Hebrew. Mark Boda argues that we should perhaps view it as part of a cluster of words that referred to bodily emissions of some sort. So if you'll pardon me just for a moment, I'm going to get a little bit gross and graphic with you. In Deuteronomy 23:13 and Ezekiel 4:12, a similar Hebrew word is placed into relationship to human excrement. Okay? Then in Isaiah 28, verse 8, yet another similar word is placed in parallel with vomit. Okay, so this is the cluster of words that we're dealing with here. This isn't You're sitting down for dinner, and Joshua has his hamburger or whatever it was that a high priest would have eaten back in ancient Israel, and he maybe dribbled a little bit of it on his robe, right? Like I would probably do in that situation, right? This is abject filth. His garments are disgusting. They're disgusting. George Klein calls the translation filthy diplomatic. It's kind of a gentle translation for you of this word. But I do actually think, as I think about it, it brings the idea into English quite well, right? When you think about garments that are just completely and totally disgustingly filthy. This is a good metaphor for sin, isn't it? Right? I mean, think about filthy garments, right? Especially garments that are filthy in the kind of way that we've been talking about filth right here. They're dirty. They stink. Don't they? Like, other people don't want to be around you if you don't have clean clothes on, right? They're unpresentable. They're embarrassing, right? You don't want to be caught in public. Maybe some of you don't even want to be caught in public going for a walk in dirty clothes, right? And in fact, it's interesting that even in English, I don't know if you've noticed this or put this together, we have a similar metaphor that we use for sin, don't we? We call it dirty laundry, right? When you talk about people knowing our dirty laundry. It's a similar type of expression. Now, casting the metaphor in this way would have proven even more impactful on a guy like Joshua. Joshua's a priest. He's a guy whose garments are supposed to be called holy and for glory and for beauty, according to Exodus 28. So in modern terms, we might say he's a man of the cloth. He's one of the sons of Aaron. And the sons of Aaron had been warned in the book of Leviticus, in Leviticus 22:3, say to them, if anyone of all your offspring throughout your generations, this would be Joshua then down the line, okay, approaches the holy things that the people of Israel dedicate to the Lord, while he has an uncleanness, that person shall be cut off from my presence. I am the Lord. Or I am Yahweh. Those are strong words. Not only is he a priest, he's the high priest. Right? This guy's like the head honcho. Right? He's the guy that's supposed to go into the Holy of Holies on the Day of Atonement and offer sacrifices for all the people of Israel. Before he did that, Leviticus chapter 16 tells us that he had to take a bath and then put on his priestly garments. So Leviticus 16 verse 4 says, he shall put on the holy linen coat and shall have the linen undergarment on his body, and he shall tie the linen sash around his waist and wear the linen turban. These are the holy garments. He shall bathe his body in water and then put them on. Right? So he's got to get himself cleaned up before he's going to go and minister on the Day of Atonement. And then he's ready to serve. Okay, so he would offer a bull as a sacrifice to make atonement for his own sins first. We see that a little later on in Leviticus 16. Then he would take some of the bull's blood into the Holy of Holies and apply it to the cover of the Ark of the Covenant. That's the lid to the Ark. Sometimes it's called the mercy seat. Then he would come back out and do the same thing with the blood of a goat. The bull was for his family sins. The goat was for the sins of all of Israel. Okay, then, after all of that, right, applying the blood of the bull and the goat to the lid of the Ark of the Covenant, he would go and put the blood on the horns of the altar as well. All right, so we just skim over this stuff sometimes, don't we? When we read books like Leviticus, our eyes start to kind of glaze over. But I want you to imagine what it would have been like for a priest in this situation. Like, think about what he's doing here. He's killing an animal. He's sprinkling its blood, right? Dealing with sin is a gruesome thing. Atonement, making atonement, it is a bloody, messy deal. This is serious business that's being portrayed here. It echoes the bleeding and the crying and the dying of the Lord Jesus as they nailed his body to a cross later in history. Now, after all of this, what are the priest's garments going to look like? They're going to be a mess. Right? He's been handling animals. He's been killing them. He's been handling their blood. And so then Leviticus 16 tells us that he has to change his clothes and take a bath. That makes sense, doesn't it? So Leviticus 16, verses 23 and 24, it says, "Then Aaron shall come into the tent of meeting and shall take off the linen garments that he put on when he went into the holy place and shall leave them there." Okay, these dirty, bloodied garments. Okay, and he shall bathe his body in water in a holy place and put on his garments and come out and offer his burnt offering and the burnt offering of the people and make atonement for himself and for the people. We're going to see this same type of theme again, also on the Day of Atonement. On the Day of Atonement, they would release a goat into the wilderness. The idea here was that it would carry away upon itself the sins of the people. The person who took the goat out into the wilderness had to wash his clothes and take a bath before he could come into the camp. That's Leviticus 16, verse 26. "And he who lets the goat go to Azazel shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and afterwards he may come into the camp." Okay, the goat and the bull that were killed, they would burn their bodies outside the camp. And you guessed it, the person who burned them had to wash his clothes and take a bath before he could come back into the camp. That's in verse 28. "And he who burns them shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and afterward he may come into the camp." We see the exact same thing in Numbers 19 with the sacrifice of the red heifer. We don't have time to go there. Don't worry. I'm not going to just take you through a track through Leviticus and Numbers this morning. Okay, the point of all of this is I want you to see from the Old Testament how incredibly important it was for a priest to have ceremonially clean garments. That's the point of all of these details. The priest's garments had to be clean. And so to pick Joshua as standing there in filthy garments, this wasn't just about personal sin, as bad and as ugly as that was. What this did was it undermined his very qualifications to serve as a priest. He can't serve in that state. For him to serve in that state actually put him in danger of being cut off, as Leviticus 22 put it. So Joshua here, standing in these filthy robes, is in a very precarious position. And remember, we said last week that this isn't just about Joshua. One of the roles of the high priest was to represent the people of Israel. And so this goes far, far deeper than just this one man. His filthiness here symbolizes their filthiness as well. And so it's not wrong for us to see in this a mirror image of ourselves outside of the Lord Jesus Christ. When we look at ourselves outside of Christ in our natural fallen state, we see that our sin defiles us, absolutely, through and through, defiles us before God, who is himself perfect and holy. It's like we're standing there before him in clothing that is soiled. What's the solution to this dilemma? It's a fresh set of clothes. It's a fresh set of clothes. It's pure vestments, as verse 4 says. And the angel said to those who were standing before him, "Remove the filthy garments from him." Now, the angel gives instructions to a group that is simply and vaguely called those who are standing before him. And although Zechariah doesn't spell this out for us, we should probably think of these figures as attendants in God's heavenly throne room. But what is important to this scene is not who they are, but what they're doing. Zechariah easily could have gone into more detail and given us this amazing description of them, like Isaiah does in Isaiah chapter 6. Zechariah doesn't provide any of this for us because he really doesn't care to tell us who these particular people are. What is important is what they're doing. They're going to take Joshua's filthy garments off and eventually, as the scene progresses, place fresh clothing on him. This is also very symbolic in its import, isn't it? Right? If the filthy garments represent sin, then having them removed represents the removal of that sin. And he said to him, "Behold, I have taken your iniquity away from you, and I will clothe you with pure vestments." there's an exchange that takes place, isn't there? The filthy garments are removed, and in their place a new set of clothes is given. Now, I'm going to quibble a little bit with the ESV's translation here of the word pure, because pure might not be the best translation. The Orthodox Jewish Bible sort of gives an expansive definition of this word as extra fine white clothing. And that really kind of captures the meaning of this word. In Isaiah 3, it looks like this word is being used to describe clothing that was fit for a celebration. This is what we might call dress clothes, if you will, in our culture. And so some translations here, like the NIV, have fine garments. Other translations, like the Christian Standard Bible, have festive robes. So these are not just clean clothes, which is certainly true in this context. These are nice clothes. This is an upgrade, so to speak. And this is going to enable Joshua to carry out his God-given calling as a priest. This is an exchange that each one of us needs in our lives. Sin has made our life filthy. We live in it, we wallow in it sometimes, actually, don't we? And we need that sin dealt with. We need it forgiven. That we need it dealt with in the definitive kind of way that only God can. And we also need its presence progressively removed from our lives. We need the Lord to give us these fine garments of righteousness instead. How does this exchange happen? Well, the first thing that you might notice in our passage is that Joshua is not the one who takes care of all of this himself. The passage doesn't depict Joshua taking a good bath and laboriously scrubbing out, all of the filth on each one of his garments, and then sort of putting his robes back on and representing himself faultless to the Lord. Of course, that's not what it says, right? What does he do? Well, Joshua just stands there, right? And the angel of the Lord takes away his filthy clothing and gives him new clothes instead. And so oftentimes we look at our clothing, so to speak, and we go, yuck, this is disgusting. What am I doing walking around in this? And then we try to get ourselves cleaned up. It's like me when I have a meal. I spill something on my shirt, right? And then I try, I think I can give myself a spit bath or something. Like that's going to solve the problem, right? The problem goes far deeper than that, doesn't it? Right? No, I need my wife to take my shirt and to grab some shout, right? And to, get that stain remover and get that stain out, right? I can't do it myself. I can take my shirt and the other. You guys get the illustration, right? But this is what's true for our sin, isn't it? Sometimes we look at the sin in our lives, right? And instead of coming to Jesus to deal with it, we're giving ourselves a spiritual spit bath because somehow we think that that's going to be more effective at washing out our sin than the blood of Christ. You can't take care of this problem yourself. If you've never come to Jesus yet to forgive you your sins, you need to understand there's nothing that you can do about this yourself. It's only the Lord Jesus who can take care of this problem for you. And here's what he's done. 2 Corinthians 5:21 says, for our sake, he, that's a reference to God the Father, made him, that's a reference to Jesus, to be sin, who knew no sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. So on the cross, Jesus takes our sin upon himself. And then when we come to him in faith, we receive his righteousness instead. That's this beautiful exchange that takes place. The situation in my life one time that just really brought this home to me in an amazing way. It was something as simple as cleaning the bathroom. With this long countertop in the house that I grew up in. It was our job as boys to clean the bathroom that we used, which made sense. And the countertop was filthy. So I got this washcloth in my hands, and I'm rubbing it over the countertop, and something remarkable happens. When I'm done, the countertop is clean, and the washcloth is filthy instead. And in that moment, I couldn't help but think of 2 Corinthians 5:21. He made him to be sin who knew no sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Some of you still need a change of clothes. You need to come to Jesus and let him bear your sin away and receive from him his righteousness. And in that moment that you come to him, you're going to hear the same words that the angel spoke to Joshua all those years ago. Remove that person's filthy garments and give them something clean and nice to wear instead. Finally, though, we see that Joshua gets a clean turban. A clean turban. That's point 3, and it's in verse 5. And I said, let them put a clean turban on his head. So they put a clean turban on his head and clothed him with garments. And the angel of the Lord was standing by. Now, Zechariah himself catches the spirit of what's going on here, and he decides he's going to get in on the action. And so he tells the heavenly attendants in the vision to put a clean turban on Joshua's head. Now, this is kind of remarkable that we see Zechariah jump in this way. And remarkably, these attendants follow his instructions. And so here we have the prophet who's giving directives to the heavenly court. Now, the turban was the headdress of the priest. Zechariah would have known that. He would have been very familiar with all of this. This would be like if you saw a football player standing there, and he's got all of his gear. He's got his shoes on with his cleats. He's got his pants. He's got his jersey on with his number. He's maybe even holding a football in his hand, but you notice that there's something missing. He needs his helmet, doesn't he, right? You know that the helmet is part of the gear of the football player or the baseball player, right? And they can be standing there, and you know that what they need to finish off their attire is a baseball cap or a cowboy or a cowgirl. It would be a cowboy hat, right? Or a horse jockey would be a jockey cap or helmet. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. I'm so embarrassed right now. We would know the appropriate dress for all of these particular figures, wouldn't we? Because we're familiar with their roles. And Zechariah knows the appropriate dress for a priest. In fact, he probably would have been quite familiar with the description of the clothing ceremony that took place when the priesthood was first instituted. I'm going to go to Leviticus one more time. Okay, so just hang with me here. There's so many rich things in the book of Leviticus. It's so easy to just kind of set it aside as just all of these weird ceremonial details. But when you really understand the book of Leviticus, it helps you to understand atonement. It helps you to understand better what it is that the Lord Jesus did for us. And in this case, it helps us to better understand the clothing of a priest. This is from Leviticus chapter 8, starting in verse 5. And Moses said to the congregation, "This is the thing that the Lord has commanded to be done." And Moses brought Aaron and his sons and washed them with water. You see there again the importance of the priest being clean. And he put the coat on him and tied the sash around his waist and clothed him with the robe and put the ephod on him and tied the skillfully woven band of the ephod around him, binding it to him with the band. And then he placed the breastpiece on him. And in the breastpiece, he put the Urim and the Thummim. These were two objects that were used to try to discern the will of God. We don't know exactly what they were. So the translators transliterate them rather than translate them because we don't exactly know how to translate them. But we're fairly certain that that was what they were used for based on other biblical data. And he set the turban on his head in verse 9. And on the turban in front, he set the golden plate, the holy crown, as the Lord commanded Moses. Getting your uniform is part of stepping into a particular role, isn't it? Right? A soldier in the U.S. military, you've got to have a certain government-issued attire. You're not going to be able to serve as a firefighter if you don't have your jacket and your helmet. Right? And something similar was true of priests as well here. Before beginning to serve, they had to be dressed for the task. Now, and notice the crowning piece, if you will, of the priest's attire in Leviticus 8 is the turban. It's the turban. Once the turban's in place, the priest is finished being dressed. And then there were sacrifices and anointings, etc., right? And then the priests were ready to serve. Zechariah knows that this is the finishing touch. Now, the angel of the Lord is standing by as all of this is taking place. That's at the very end of verse 5. That sets the stage for the next verses when the angel is going to give a charge to Joshua. And we're going to come to that charge and look at it in depth next week. But before we do that, I want to pause and just think through some of this more personally for us this morning. Some of this may seem pretty remote, pretty divorced from our personal lives. I mean, sure, we can identify with the need for sin to be taken away, but the rest of it might seem pretty foreign and not very applicable to our lives. There haven't been Israelite priests functioning in this way going on thousands of years now. But as a Christian, this may not be as remote from your life as you think. Did you know that the New Testament treats every Christian as a spiritual priest? Is that a new idea for you? 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9 says to believers, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." So the Apostle Peter takes over imagery about Old Testament Israel, and he applies it to believers in Jesus. And there's these three things that he says about us: a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. And notice the royal priesthood. In 1 Peter 2, in the verses right before that, in verse 5, it says, you yourselves, like living stones, are being built up as a spiritual house, to be a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. This refers to all of us. All of us have a priestly service to the Lord, if you're a believer in Jesus, okay? Now, we're not the high priest, of course. That position is occupied by Jesus in the New Covenant. But as Christians, we are all, spiritually speaking, priests before God. And so there is a certain sense in which we might think of God doing the same type of Zechariah 3 sort of thing in our lives as well. He cleanses us from sin so that we'll be useful in service to him. And then when we think about the turban, and forgive me if this is too much of a stretch, he even gives us a particular hat to wear as a Christian. Right? So we'll call that sanctified creativity, hopefully not interpretive recklessness. What are some of the hats that we might wear as Christians in serving the Lord? You can yell them out. This is audience participation part. The helmet of salvation, sure. Yeah. What are some of the roles that we may play? Yeah, righteousness. Yep. What about areas of service? Sorry? Oh, deacon? Yeah, deacon is an area of service. What are other areas of service? Pastoring? Yeah, that's the hat I wear, right? Teacher? Yep. What else? Treasurer? Yeah. Custodian? Yeah, absolutely. What else? Prophets? Evangelists? Disciple makers? Yeah, we're all disciple makers, but some people are particularly gifted to making disciples. You guys are getting the idea, right? Each one of you, if you are in Christ, you have a particular hat to wear. Okay? And these things that God has given you to do, this hat that you have to wear, this is actually part of your own personal priestly service to the Lord. See, the Bible doesn't draw this distinction. There is an office of pastor, there is an office of elder, right? But we're not the priesthood. There is a priesthood that consists of all believers. And whatever service it is that God has called you to, that is your priestly service to him. Now, here's the rub. You've got to be clean first. You've got to be clean first. 2 Timothy 2:21 says, "Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from what is dishonorable, he will be a vessel for honorable use, set apart as holy, useful to the master of the house, ready for every good work." God has things that he wants to do with your life. He has ways that he would use you. And it's even appropriate to think of these things in terms of priestly service. But first, my friends, sin has to be dealt with. Before that happens, we can't carry out the priestly ministry that God has for us. So, how's your clothing? How's your clothing? Have you been given these fine, fresh clothes by Jesus? Or are you still walking around in your dirty, filthy laundry? You know, the graphic irony here is that most of us wouldn't be caught dead in dirty clothes out in public, would we? Especially not clothes like Joshua is depicted with here. Right? We would be too embarrassed to leave the house. But spiritually, some of us walk around in what amounts to these kinds of filthy rags. You're like me in my strange dream that I shared with you at the beginning of the sermon, right? Deciding it's fine to go out in dirty clothes. And the funny thing is, it's not even necessary, because the whole time the Lord Jesus is standing there just waiting for you to allow him to give you something fresh and beautiful to wear. Let Jesus make this exchange in your life. Let him remove your filthy garments. Let him give you fine vestments instead. And let him place a clean turban on your head. Then you'll be clothed and ready to render your priestly service to him. Let's pray. Father, we thank you so much that you haven't simply left us in our sin, but that you have made a way for us to receive your righteousness, your righteous robes. And you did that at the cost of the life of your own Son. We thank you for that, Lord God. And I pray that if there's anyone here today who has not yet availed themselves of that mercy that you offer in Christ, that today would be the day that they wouldn't wait, that they would just come before you and say, Lord Jesus, here I am. Please make this exchange. Take my filthy clothes and give me your righteous robes in their place. We pray this, Lord God, in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.